This, Madam Speaker, concludes the review of the country's economic performance. I now turn to the economic outlook. Madam Speaker, real GDP is estimated to have grown by 5.2% in 2014 and forecast to grow at a slower rate of 4.9% in 2015. Such growth is mainly driven by the non-mining sectors, including trade, hotels and restaurants, finance and banking, and social and personal services, as indicated before. Furthermore, activities such as increased diamond cutting policy, establishment of in Silibepikwe of the steel manufacturing plant, and the horticulture agro-processing plant, and the rolling out of the postal and banking services to the rural areas are expected to contribute to the growth of the non-mining sectors in the future. These sectors, in turn, are expected to contribute to growth and economic diversification, and thus creating employment opportunities and empowering citizens. Madam Speaker, a positive domestic economic outlook as shown by major economic indicators characterized by low debt levels as confirmed by external organizations such as Moody's Investor Service, provides a basis for domestic and foreign investment in the country. Similarly, a supportive monetary policy that has ensured stability of the real effective exchange rate should promote competitiveness of the domestic enterprises in the global market. The prospect of low inflation also has the potential to impact positively on the standard of living of Botswana, which is why we are all here, improve the standard of living of Botswana. Given this conducive macroeconomic environment, we expect the private sector to take the lead in driving economic growth and employment creation. Madam Speaker, I now turn to development agenda beyond 2016. Madam Speaker, as the period of the current long-term Vision 2016 approaches the end, government through the National Strategy Office has embarked on the preparation of the National Vision beyond 2016. In this regard, diagnostic studies of the four thematic areas of economy and employment, social upliftment, sustainable environment, and governance, safety, and security have been undertaken. Furthermore, the draft vision framework was approved by Botswana Economic Advisory Council, which is chaired by His Excellency the President, in November 2014. This framework will guide discussion and consultations with the general public, as it should be, as from April 2015. A presidential task team is expected to be appointed in March 2015 to lead the development of the next national vision, and is anticipated to conclude its work by December 2015. The new vision is expected to be launched in September 2016. Considering that the development of a new vision provides an anchor for medium-term plans, government took a deliberate decision to extend the period of NDP 10 by 1 more year. In this case, I am happy, Madam Speaker, that the Parliament endorsed this decision at its last meeting in December 2014. This would allow for proper alignment of NDP 11 goals and objectives with the nation's future aspirations, as would be articulated in the National Vision beyond 2016. Second, Millennium Development Goals. Madam Speaker, as the end date of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, MDGs for short, of December 2015 approaches, Botswana has been among countries that in 2013 reaffirmed commitment to the new United Nations Development Framework for the next 15 years beyond 2050. The United Nations is currently refining the 16 broad areas already defined as forming the foundation of the proposed Sustainable Development Goals as the successor to the MDGs framework. These broad-based areas of those 16, I'll just mention a few of them here. 1, ending poverty in all its forms and everywhere. 2, a healthy life at all ages for all. 3, quality education and lifelong learning for all. Water and sanitation for a sustainable world. And lastly, mitigating and adapting to include change. Mitigating and adapting to climate change. Just to mention a few. Madam Speaker, I now turn to a section of the speech entitled Key Thematic Areas for 2015-16 financial year. Madam Speaker, with economic growth and diversification remaining the country's economic priorities, the government has identified 4 key thematic areas which are growing the economy, 2, promoting inclusive growth, 3, enhancing business environment to promote investment and foster diversification, and 4, strengthening the judicial system and combating crime and corruption. These thematic areas are critical in promoting growth and ensuring diversification, and therefore assisting in efforts to create employment and improve on the general infrastructure, health, social development, as well as impact on the fight against corruption and crime. I'll be dealing with these areas in turn. Growing the economy. Madam Speaker, to address the development challenges of poverty, unemployment, and income inequality, we need economic growth. Without growing the size of the economy, it will be impossible to create jobs that the country desperately needs to address youth unemployment, and generate revenues to support government social welfare programs. It is for this reason that growth and economic diversification should remain our economic priorities. Economic growth can also be generated through improving total sector productivity and increasing the productive human and capital inputs. Whereas the country has performed reasonably well in increasing factor inputs, growth in factor productivity has been a challenge in recent years in this country. In this regard, improving productivity, especially labor productivity, must remain a priority for driving economic growth and ensuring that the economy performs at its potential capacity. Government will continue to put in place measures to promote productivity that include reforming the country's education and training system, improving work ethic through training the workforce, as well as reviewing labor legislation with a view to promoting efficiency in the labor market. Such labor market reforms will assist the economy to transit from the current mineral-led to a knowledge economy. To further improve on total sector productivity, government is implementing public sector reforms, enhancing research and development, and is developing appropriate human skills. Now, public sector reforms. Madam Speaker, public sector reforms are critical in improving productivity and achieving efficient public service delivery. Hence, a comprehensive public sector reform coordination program is being developed and will be implemented during NDP 11. The program is expected to generate 5 key results, which are improved relevance and convergence of public sector reforms and their alignment with national priorities, enhanced coordination, increased capacity of implementing agencies, improved monitoring and evaluation, and informed decision-making on prioritization and funding. These results are expected to improve service delivery within the public sector and thus have a positive bearing on labour productivity and economic growth. Furthermore, a public finance management reform program was adopted in July 2010 as part of the ongoing fiscal reforms. In this connection, the last few years have seen government gradually strengthening its macro-fiscal management and budget formulation capabilities. In the process, my ministry has been able to develop and implement a medium-term fiscal framework which generates medium-term fiscal forecasts. In addition, government will implement a medium-term expenditure framework in 2015-16 financial year to strengthen the management of public finance spending, and it is critical to do so. Enhancing research and development. Madam Speaker, research and development are essential ingredients in driving economic growth and keeping the country abreast of emerging global competition. To this end, government has undertaken to regularly generate indicators of research, science, technology, and innovation to inform on the current status of Botswana's capability in supporting and maintaining research and innovation. The indicators generated from the 2012-13 data show that Botswana's capability in research and development in terms of investment, private sector involvement, and human resource dedicated to research is still low. Hence, the need for a coordinated and aggressive and concerted implementation of research, science, technology, and innovation policy of 2011. The policy already exists. As part of implementation of targeted research and development, Botswana Institute of Technology, Research and Innovation, BITRI, is setting up a center for material sciences to be able to adapt material of any kind and respond to the challenges of industry in manufacturing, in medicine, energy production, environmental management, transportation, and communication. The Institute has also, through private sector participation, established a Center for Coal Studies, coal, important resource in this country, with a view to contributing towards coal beneficiation. Furthermore, BITRI continues to sensitize government departments on the solar-driven technology and has demonstrated its use in Gaborone, Hansi, and Southern Kalahari districts. Botswana Innovation Hub, for its part, has set up a National Technology Transfer Office to provide local entrepreneurs and innovators with the required tools to learn the latest technology in order to absorb and adopt it in their businesses. In addition, an innovation fund is being established to support emerging innovators and thus facilitate BIH's mandate of promoting innovation and technology in this country. Developing appropriate human skills. Madam Speaker, investment in education is a prerequisite for productive workforce, which is necessary for sustainable economic growth. This is not debatable. In an effort to achieve and promote education standards, government has initiated the development of a 5-year education and training strategic sector plan. The plan is aimed at providing an overall policy and strategic framework for education and training. It is expected to improve the quality and relevance of education, very important, by focusing on teacher development and professionalism, as well as strengthening skills development by restructuring the education system. Furthermore, it will increase equitable access to education by intensifying the use of ICT countrywide. Very important to do this. Now, promoting the use of information and communications technology, ICT. Madam Speaker, the use of information and communications technology, ICT, is an important tool for efficient delivery of public services to Botswana. To this end, the government has adopted the e-government program in order to enhance innovation in the public sector. The program includes application and issuance of various government permits and licenses and certificates, providing information on legislative and administrative notices, as well as payment services such as tax refund. I now deal with the second thematic area of promoting inclusive growth. Promoting inclusive growth. Yes. Madam Speaker, despite the positive economic growth registered in the past years, the country continues to face development challenges of unemployment and poverty. To address these challenges, government will be promoting inclusive growth by creating a conducive environment for productive economic opportunities, while ensuring that the benefits of economic growth are equitably shared among various sections of the society. While the focus will be on productive employment, government will continue with its efforts to eradicate abject poverty by providing social welfare programs to the poor and most vulnerable groups in the society. Employment creation, another tool for inclusive growth. Madam Speaker, an inclusive growth approach is premised on gainful employment of factors of production, especially labor. The current unemployment rate of 19.8% therefore represents underutilization of one of the country's important resources, namely our human capital. This is a challenge for the country, all of us, especially that it affects the youth. It is for this reason, Madam Speaker, that the government will continue to implement various programs, projects, and strategies geared towards assisting the youth and women to improve their livelihoods. The youth and women to improve their livelihoods. This year's development budget of 12.93 billion, which will mainly be spent on infrastructure projects such as construction of new schools, new power transmission lines, water pipelines, is expected to go a long way in creating new employment opportunities. In addition, complementary laws, labor laws such as the Employment Act, Trade Disputes Act, Workers' Compensation Act, and Trade Unions and Employers' Organizations Act will be reviewed in order to facilitate harmonious industrial relations to ensure a labor relations environment which is conducive to investment. Poverty eradication. Madam Speaker, to address one dimension of inclusive growth, which is the protection of the disadvantaged and marginalized groups of the society, government will continue to put in place measures to improve the efficacy of our social welfare programs. These measures include food security, availability of social safety nets to reduce poverty, and the promotion of opportunities for special groups such as women and the elderly and people living with disabilities. It is therefore pleasing to note, Madam Speaker, that the poverty eradication efforts by the government continue to yield results, as indicated by the decline in the population living in poverty from 30.6% in 2002-03 to 19.3% in 2009-10, from 30.6% to 19.3%. Since November 2014, 9,588 projects funded under the Poverty Eradication Program have been fully operational, covering all districts in the country. Beneficiaries of such projects, I'm happy to say, are now earning sufficient income to graduate from extreme poverty, which is the whole objective of the program. Government will therefore continue to fund this program with a view to assisting more deserving citizens. Meanwhile, government is in the process of formulating a Botswana poverty eradication strategy, which is expected to be finalized by the end of September 2015. This strategy will serve to guide all efforts of government towards poverty eradication across sectors to ensure consistency of action and results, as well as fostering inclusive growth in our economic development agenda. Madam Speaker, I now turn to financial inclusion. Madam Speaker, achieving inclusive growth as a policy objective will depend on, among others, the extent to which the financial system provides basic financial services to the people. In this regard, the financial sector has intensified its efforts to promote financial inclusion, broadly defined as the delivery of financial services at affordable cost to disadvantaged and low-income segments of the society. Mobile financial services is one of those initiatives that are being used to promote financial inclusion. It includes mobile money transfer and mobile banking, such as e-wallet and others, which are easily accessible and convenient medium for the delivery of financial services. During the year 2015-2016, a making access to financial services possible diagnostic analysis will be carried out in Botswana with the view of developing a comprehensive financial inclusive roadmap, which should lead to a more accessible, inclusive, and robust financial system. Citizen economic empowerment. Madam Speaker, inclusive growth cannot be achieved without empowering citizens to take an active role in economic activities. To this end, the amended Citizen Economic Empowerment Policy makes it mandatory for subcontracting of government-funded projects to 100% citizen-owned companies. Mandatory, no longer an option. It further stipulates that 30% of each ministry's project budgets should be reserved for 100% citizen-owned companies to promote the citizen empowerment. And we're talking of big budgets, and 30% of such budgets is equally big. To further advance citizen economic empowerment, the implementation of local procurement scheme has been progressing at different levels across the country. All the district administration tender committees have been trained on the scheme. Effective implementation of the scheme should translate into more empowerment of our citizens in the rural areas, especially through businesses owned by women, youth, and people living with disabilities. Once again, the focus on women, on the youth, and people living with disabilities. I now deal with the third thematic area, which is enhancing the business environment to promote and foster diversification. Madam Speaker, economic diversification is a long-term process. We all know that. Despite some achievements, it is still a challenge. To address this challenge, government continues to embark on several strategies that of late include cluster and value chain development, financial sector support, as well as fostering an environment that allows for complementarity between the macro and microeconomic policies, and deregulation of domestic markets to promote competition. Now, a few words about development of cluster and value chain in selected sectors. Madam Speaker, the cluster and value chain approach to development has yielded positive results in some countries. The concept of clusters refers to a group of interconnected firms, suppliers, and related industries while a value chain is a sequence of activities that firms operating in a specific industry perform in order to deliver a valuable product or service. In this regard, government has adopted the cluster development approach as a practical strategy to achieve economic growth and diversification. The 4 identified clusters in our case are diamonds, tourism, cattle, and mining, the latter comprising of coal, copper, and other minerals, excluding diamonds. Some work has already started on the development of the diamond cluster. Regarding the cattle cluster development, 3 districts of Central, Gauteng, and Khansi have been identified for the first phase of implementing this concept. The concept will include, among others, ensuring that within each district there is development of industries such as livestock feed processing plants, abattoirs, and refrigerated transportation to support the beef industry. Another sector where the cluster approach will be introduced is the tourism sector, which continues to be one of the key sectors that contributes to diversification of our economy. During 2013, tourist arrivals were estimated at 2.4 million, while receipts amounted to 6.24 billion pula. Government is reviewing the tourism policy to address local, regional, and international challenges experienced within this industry. Such a review process is in its final stages, and the revised policy is expected to create a more supportive and enabling environment for local investors. Financial sector support. Madam Speaker, in view of the critical role of the financial services sector in creating a conducive business environment for diversification, government remains committed to the implementation of the Financial Sector Development Strategy of 2012, whose aim is to promote a smooth development of financial services sector, including the development of the domestic capital market. Among the measures to further improve financial and business services is a project on the electronic check imaging and truncation, whose objective is to reduce the check clearing cycle from the current 4 to 2 days. A successful implementation of the project will allow bank customers paid by check to have quicker access to their funds. In order to improve the level of protection of users in financial services, my ministry has been working with the Non-Bank Financial Institutions Regulatory Authority in drafting several pieces of legislation. To this end, the Securities Act and the Retirement Funds Act were passed during the July 2014 sitting of Parliament. Furthermore, the Insurance Industry Bill is scheduled to be presented at this sitting of Parliament, and we intend to present several new bills to Parliament during the course of the financial year 2015-2016. The new bills would include a revised Non-Bank Financial Institutions Regulatory Authority Bill and a new Collective Investment Undertakings Bill. Complementary macro and microeconomic policies. Madam Speaker, in order to achieve the goals of economic growth and diversification, a number of policy reforms are necessary and should continue to be implemented at both macro and micro levels. These include the implementation of macro policies such as fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate policies, as well as micro policies such as privatization, promotion of efficient labor market, deregulation of domestic market to encourage competition as earlier stated, and promoting trade through participation in regional and international trade agreements such as those we have, the SADC Trade Protocol and the SADC EU Economic Partnership Agreement. In terms of macroeconomic policies, government has maintained a stable macroeconomic environment. In turn, we expect that the private sector will take advantage of this conducive macroeconomic environment to grow and create employment opportunities. That's the whole purpose. The last thematic area, strengthen the judicial system in combating crime and corruption. Madam Speaker, a secure environment is a prerequisite for both domestic and foreign investments, which are essential ingredients for growth and economic diversification.